An explosive rift is occurring right now in the Islamic world over control of the Temple Mount. For years, the Palestinians have had de facto control through their ally Jordan, who runs the Islamic Waqf. But that is changing fast. Sides are forming. Will Israel stand to gain by this struggle between Muslims? Is that how the Temple Mount sacrifices finally begin? And how the third temple might be built? That's what we're talking about today, and we're starting right now. As Christians, when we think of the Temple Mount, we usually just think about Israel and the desire to build a third temple, their desire to worship on the Temple Mount. What we don't usually think about is Muslims, and that certain groups of Muslims have been excluded from the Mount. But that is the case. And that exclusion of certain Muslims may give Israel the chance to forward their agenda of doing sacrifices or even building a temple. This was highlighted by the most unusual article ever posted by the Temple Institute on their website. The Temple Institute is the group that has drawn up the plans for the third temple, trained priests, built an altar to begin sacrifices on the Mount. But this article wasn't written by a Jew. It was written by a Muslim Arab. What is a Muslim doing contributing a blog post to this conservative Jewish group? The reason is they are becoming allies in the struggle over who controls the Temple Mount. A struggle that the Bible tells us will end in World War III, the Gog-Magog War. Christians have tended to think of all Muslims as being against Israel in the struggle. And until recently, that might have been kind of true, but it no longer is. Arab Muslims in the Gulf region are waking up and beginning to demand an end to the Palestinian monopoly over the Islamic holy site in Jerusalem. We will visit the Al-Aqsa Mosque because it does not belong to you, and they're talking to the Palestinians. It belongs to all Muslims. How wrong we were when we thought that Israel was preventing Muslims from visiting the Al-Aqsa Mosque. These reactions are coming from Arab Muslims in the wake of the newly signed Abraham Accords between Israel and many of these Gulf Coast Muslim states. Their eyes are opening that the Palestinians and the Jordanians, who have maintained control of the Temple Mount since like the '67 war, have treated them unfairly. And that is changing. Last December, we indicated the leaked documents of Trump's deal of the century indicated that Saudi Arabia was about to be given control of the Mount. Then in this previous video from this summer, we discussed how Saudis now have representation on what was previously a Jordanian-only Waqf or committee. And now, with the normalization of relations with Israel, the Gulf Coast states can visit Israel freely and visit their holy sites on the Temple Mount. However, there is still resistance, as you can see from this picture of Palestinians burning a picture of the Crown Prince of the UAE, or United Arab Emirates. Here's a quote from the Arab-authored article. As far as the Palestinians are concerned, a Muslim who believes in Israel's right to exist is not entitled to enter the Temple Mount or pray at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Why? In the world of the Palestinians, a Muslim or Arab who makes peace with Israel is a traitor who does not deserve to enter the compound. Supporting this radical viewpoint is Turkey's Erdogan and his axis of evil, taking sides with the Palestinians. He is using the issue of the Temple Mount to help build his own base of power. He's a power-hungry guy. And with this support, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas's Palestinian Authority is pushing a campaign to prevent Muslims from the UAE and Bahrain, the two Gulf states that recently signed peace agreements with Israel, from entering the Temple Mount. You can imagine how this has infuriated and divided Islamic factions, and it may have an impact on the building of the third temple, or at least the beginning of sacrifices on the Temple Mount. As the Islamic world divides over this issue, Israel stands to gain access to the Temple Mount that it never had before, if their new allies win the struggle for Temple Mount control. Will that control result in Israel being able to start sacrifices on the Temple Mount? You can see how important that would be. Sacrifices beginning on the Temple Mount is a bigger sign of the end times than even the building of the third temple. We know that at the midpoint of the 70th week of Daniel, those sacrifices cease. In order to stop them, they had to have started. The Temple Institute already has a portable altar built that it could be wheeled right into the right spot where sacrifices took place in the days of Jesus and the apostles. The Passover sacrifice is the most important of the year to those practicing Judaism. So right now is a time to keep an eye on this struggle. Will the payoff for Israel supporting the Gulf Arabs be the right to do those sacrifices as soon as March 2021? A major factor that will decide this struggle is Jordan, who has been the traditional ally of the Palestinians. If Jordan swings around and joins the Abraham Accords and throws its support to Israel, these sacrifices could happen maybe as soon as the spring, as we said. What could influence Jordan to change sides? Why would it do that? Erdogan. I am sure even the Palestinians are wary of this dictator, but they need his help. But Jordan? Although they were silent on Erdogan's recent statement that Jerusalem is Turkey's city, they are fearful of his meddling in Israel. They know Erdogan wants control of the Waqf and eventually a revised Ottoman Empire that would subjugate Jordan to Turkey. So this channel wouldn't be surprised if Jordan flip-flops and joins the Southern Alliance to protect themselves from Turkey and Erdogan, and in so doing, allow Israel access to the Temple Mount, at least for sacrifices. Then imagine how angry Erdogan and the Palestinians would be. It could be World War III. Maybe literally. Would this then create the alliances seen in Ezekiel 38, the Gog-Magog war? If you want to see how this might be, click right here and learn what modern countries would join Gog in his evil attack on Israel. Or click right here to learn how the Temple Mount sacrifices require the sacrifice of a red heifer first, and what the latest information on the heifer is. Till then, this is Nelson, and I'll see you there.